The biggest, baddest, longest, fastest coaster in the world. The Beast is running wild in Cincinnati. You'll find it at Kings Island. But the Beast is only the beginning. You're just a short drive away from America's top-ranked seasonal theme park. So this summer, track down the Beast and discover all the reasons why you should stop and share the good times at Kings Island, 20 miles north of Cincinnati on I-71.
This is the story of one of the most infamous roller coasters ever created. Located at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, this was a coaster that some look back on fondly, while most were intimidated by it. Kings Island has long had a history of introducing attractions that are either the first of their kind or new to the United States. In 1981, they opened the Bat, the first aero-suspended coaster that proved to swing too aggressively for its own good. In 1984, the park introduced King Cobra, the U.S.'s first Togo stand-up coaster, and in 1987 the Bat was replaced with Vortex, which broke the record for most inversions on a single coaster at the time. However, something was about to change at Kings Island once they came under the ownership of Paramount Parks in 1993, and it all began with the fearsome creature that roamed the woods behind the park. First discovered in 1979, this creature was thought to be the only one in existence, but that would prove to be false. In an effort to break records previously thought unattainable, Kings Island would do something that only a film studio could. They began work on a sequel. Kings Island first opened in 1972 under the ownership of the Taft Broadcasting Company. One of the main attractions on opening day was Racer, a dueling wooden coaster designed by John C. Allen. Kings Island was intended to be a replacement for Coney Island, another park near Cincinnati that suffered many closures due to frequent flooding. Despite original plans to relocate Coney Island's Shooting Star wooden coaster to Kings Island, the rolling wooded hills behind the park gave park officials another idea. Enter the Beast, an incredible wooden coaster that shattered the record for the world's longest wooden roller coaster when it opened in 1979, a record it still holds today. With a track length of over 7,300 feet and ride time of over 4 minutes, the Beast used the heavily wooded terrain to its advantage to deliver an experience that felt isolated from the rest of the park. Much of the track was low to the ground, going through 4 tunnels. This was changed to 3 when the 2 final tunnels were joined together several years later. Riders would follow the path of a wild creature running through the woods of Kings Island's Rivertown, a path that also broke the records for the tallest and fastest coaster, with a drop of 141 feet and speed of 65 miles per hour. The Beast was even adapted into 2 books by none other than R.L. Stine. Apparently, the Beast has the ability to travel through time. The coaster would remain relatively unchanged over the years, but elsewhere in the park, a change in ownership would alter nearly everything else.
In 1993, Paramount Communications purchased all 5 parks that were under the ownership of Taft Broadcasting and Kings Entertainment Company. This, of course, included Kings Island, and the park was renamed Paramount's Kings Island. Almost immediately, Paramount began incorporating some of their properties into the acquired parks. For Kings Island, this included the aero-suspended coaster Top Gun in 1993, and the Premier Rides launch coaster The Outer Limits Flight of Fear in 1996. A few years later, in 1998, competition was brewing as Premier Parks had just taken ownership of the Six Flags brand, rebranding some of their existing parks as Six Flags Parks. This included Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom, located only 2 hours away from Kings Island. Soon, word got out of what Premier's plans for Kentucky Kingdom were, and it was pretty intimidating. A new Gotham City expansion and a B&M floorless coaster, and an Intamin-launched Impulse coaster. Executives at Kings Island were concerned about what this would mean for their own park's attendance, so they decided to give Kings Island some upgrades of its own before Kentucky Kingdoms could even begin. This all led to the construction of a new themed area in 1999, Paramount's Action Zone.
And this is what people will see at Kings Island this year. When you first walk onto the 7 acres of the Paramount Action Zone, you'll see a 40-foot tall water tower. You'll notice Hollywood-type actors, directors, and producers. All are part of a dramatic stunt demonstration designed to astound you.
It is real. It is a recreation of Hollywood stunts, as people probably recognize Hollywood stunts to be.
Themed to a hectic studio backlot, this was where Paramount could incorporate their own properties as they saw fit, and they began with Face Off, a Vekoma inverted boomerang, and a drop zone stunt tower, a 315 feet tall Intamin drop tower. But that was only the beginning. As the crowning achievement to their new themed area, Kings Island would create a sequel to their greatest roller coaster, and it would be more overwhelming than they had ever anticipated. On May 11, 1999, coaster enthusiasts and members of the media were invited to Kings Island for an announcement that would change the park forever. Meeting under the first drop of the Beast, the event began with a commemoration of the coaster's 20th anniversary. But Master of Ceremonies Montel Williams was frequently interrupted by snarling and roars from a mysterious crate next to the stage.
Not like being upstage. Nothing like being upstaged by a box, you know what I mean?
Finally, the moment of truth came. The coaster had a name, Son of Beast. Like its father before it, Son of Beast would break multiple records, and the design of a coaster seemed too overwhelming to be real. It would be the world's fastest wooden coaster at 78 miles an hour, and would not only be the tallest, but also the only wooden hypercoaster at 218 feet. On top of those records, Son of Beast broke new ground by being the only wooden coaster to incorporate an inversion, a vertical loop, a feat not attempted since the early days of roller coasters in the 1800s. Son of Beast would be constructed by the Roller Coaster Corporation of America, or RCCA, who were also responsible for the original Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Building this coaster would be a tremendous feat, but RCCA seemed up to the task of construction began in the summer of 1999.
For the rest of the 1999 season, guests at Kings Island could observe the massive new coaster taking shape, although the construction was not without its setbacks. Months later, on January 11th, a powerful windstorm caused a 100-foot-long section of track to collapse. This section was only held up by temporary supports at the time, and Kings Island assured the public that construction would still proceed on schedule. Despite the reassurance, speculation grew that things were not well behind the scenes, and unbeknownst to the public, this was correct. Unhappy with the quality of work that had been done, Kings Island fired RCCA from the project and set out to complete Son of Beast themselves, entirely in-house. By the park's opening day in April 2000, Son of Beast was nearing completion, but the coaster did not meet its scheduled opening date of late April. Instead, Son of Beast opened on May 26th, and hundreds of guests began lining up to experience this new record-breaking coaster. One thing Son of Beast did not have on its side was secrecy. Ask anyone who has been to Kings Island and they'll tell you how difficult it is to get photos and videos, or even a simple look at the track of the Beast. The coaster is well hidden among the trees and feels removed from the rest of the park, which adds to the overall mysterious theme of the coaster. Son of Beast commanded the spotlight and was visible from nearly anywhere within the park. With its 218-foot-tall first hill, Son of Beast changed the Kings Island skyline permanently. A ride on Son of Beast began with riders approaching Outpost 5, a high-security station that had just captured the Son of Beast. From Outpost 5, guests would board the train to survey the facility's perimeter. The trains were manufactured by Premier Rides, and after boarding them, riders would pass under the lift hill before going into a 51-foot drop, meant to build up speed to get to the lift hill. Ascending the 218-foot-tall lift was unnerving, but after cresting the hill, the trains banked left before heading into the first drop, one of 216 feet, bringing the trains to 78 miles per hour. Ascending the second hill, the trains brake right and enter Son of Beast's iconic helix, referred to by many as the Rose Bowl section. Upon exiting the Rose Bowl, it was time for the signature element, a 118-foot-tall vertical loop, the only one on any wooden coaster. Despite the loop's support structure being steel, the track itself never transitioned, remaining wooden throughout. Because of the steel supports, the loop was considered by many to be the smoothest part of the ride. After the loop, Son of Beast enters its second helix, hidden from view to everyone not riding by sitting inside the coaster's first drop. But even after the second helix, the ride still isn't over. A few more airtime hills remain to carry riders back into Outpost 5, ending a ride on Son of Beast.
From the beginning, guests were torn on what to think of Son of Beast. Some preferred its speed and intensity over the original, while others found it far too rough and overwhelming. Regardless, the park maintained that Son of Beast was there to stay, but this didn't stop Kings Island from taking some of their own complaints to court. Later that year, in November of 2000, Kings Island would file a lawsuit against RCCA and Wooden Structures Inc., claiming that the support structure of the coaster was insufficient and the victim of faulty engineering, which required the park's own resources to correct. A separate lawsuit was also filed against Universal Forest Products for providing poor quality lumber to construct the coaster, but RCCA were not going to take this quietly. In addition to publicly revealing that they had been fired from their project by Kings Island, they also revealed that the park had ignored safety and construction advice on numerous occasions. Despite these lawsuits, Kings Island continued to operate Son of Beast, maintaining that the coaster was completely safe, and the public seemed to go along with it. The negative publicity did impact ridership to a certain degree, but guests were still coming from far and wide to experience the record-breaking coaster. Son of Beast had been inspected for safety on multiple occasions, but in the state of Ohio, amusement rides inspections fall under the duties of the Department of Agriculture, who admitted that they could not conclusively determine if Son of Beast was safe or not. The coaster would continue to operate for the next several years, continuing to have mixed reputation and giving most of the riders headaches. Mixed reception aside, Kings Island was successful in scaring off Six Flags. They decided to give up on their plans for Kentucky Kingdom and instead incorporate them into Geauga Lake, intending to compete with Cedar Point instead, a decision that would change the park forever. On June 30th, 2006, Paramount Parks would be no more as CBS would put the division up for sale, and it was purchased by Cedar Fair, who dropped the Paramount subscript from all the park names.
But more than anything else, they're going to notice that it's Kings Island again.
The park has officially dropped Paramount from its name. Don't be surprised if you feel nostalgic when you stroll around.
It's kind of back to how the park was in the 70s and 80s.
Cedar Fair would have a rough welcome as the new owners of Kings Island, as on July 9th the same year, a structural failure in the Rose Bowl section of Son of Beast caused the train to violently jolt and come to an abrupt stop. All 27 riders on the train were taken to the local hospitals, with most being released within a few hours, although 2 sustained minor injuries. A subsequent inspection by the Department of Agriculture revealed that the support beam had cracked, although this could not be directly connected to the train stopping. Cedar Fair realized that the coaster had become too rough and unpredictable, and shut it down for the remainder of 2006. The Department of Agriculture's recent investigation alleged that Kings Island's owners were aware of the coaster's structural defects and would simply add more supports wherever needed, rather than rebuilding sections as a whole as a way to cut costs.
I could have spun it with my finger.
It was that loose?
It was that loose. And this is not the failure location. This is another location. It was more of let's see what we can do to kind of make it work along the way. And I thought that was a poor way to approach the problem.
But on the other hand, in going forward, if it's going to continue to be a liability for the park, they're going to have to make a difficult decision on whether to keep it or take it down.
Regardless, Son of Beast needed to be changed. In an effort to reduce the roughness of the ride, it was decided that new trains were needed. Earlier that same year, the Myrtle Beach Pavilion had shut down after its final season. The park was home to a CCI wooden coaster called Hurricane, which was demolished with the rest of the park. Cedar Fair purchased the Gerstlauer trains from Hurricane for use on Son of Beast. The new trains were shorter and did run more smoothly, but they had problems navigating the course and weren't building up enough speed to complete the loop. To the dismay of many, Son of Beast's signature loop was removed, and the coaster finally reopened on July 4th, 2007.
Operation of Son of Beast continued as normal for the next few years until June 16, 2009, when a woman claimed that a ride on Son of Beast a month before had caused her to suffer a brain aneurysm. Despite there being no other reports of injuries on Son of Beast that year, Cedar Fair played it safe and closed the coaster down so the Department of Agriculture could once again come in and inspect it. Their inspection discovered nothing out of the ordinary, however, and they gave Cedar Fair the okay to reopen the coaster, but that never happened. For the rest of 2009, Son of Beast remained standing but not operating, with many wondering when the legendary coaster would return. The 2010 season came and went with no updates on Son of Beast, and 2011 would be much of the same. Speculation began running wild, with some claiming that the coaster was poised to receive a massive overhaul, transforming it into a hybrid creation. However, Kings Island did not comment on the coaster's status until 2012, and the news was not what most people wanted to hear. In the spring of 2012, it was confirmed that Son of Beast would be dismantled and removed. The coaster's rough reputation had finally caught up with it, and with one final pull, the record-breaking lift hill was reduced to a pile of lumber. Son of Beast had finally come to an end. In 2012, park guests couldn't help but notice the massive area of empty land where Son of Beast had once stood, but the area wouldn't stay empty for long. Beginning in 2014, a menacing spirit would rise from the rubble. Banshee, the world's longest B&M inverted coaster, now occupies part of the land where Son of Beast once ran wild. Banshee's queue winds its way through a cemetery, and on the largest gravestone, there for all to see, is a memorial to the wooden coaster that was too intense for its own good. A plaque proudly showcasing the coaster's signature loop, and an eternal flame burning in memory of the sun that wasn't meant to be. Despite Son of Beast's rough history, Kings Island has not tried to wipe the coaster's memory from existence. In addition to the grave in Banshee's queue, Outpost 5 still remains as a seasonal haunt maze, with a small section of track still inside. Merchandise can still be bought throughout the park, adorned with Son of Beast's familiar logo, so the memory lives on. Although Son of Beast is no longer around, it remains as a sort of legend in the coaster community, a coaster that was far too ambitious for its time and one that provided rides that were truly unforgettable. And still, after all this time, the original Beast continues to prowl the woods, perhaps searching for the sun that disappeared nearly a decade ago. Thank you all for joining me for the history of Kings Island Son of Beast. I do want to thank Derrick from XscreamThrills for joining me for this video. I have a link to his channel down in the description, and if you like roller coaster discussions and No Limits creations, then I'm sure you'll enjoy his content. I also want to momentarily spotlight Sean Flaharty and CoasterBob62, both of who have provided a ton of footage of Son of Beast over the years, and various other defunct coasters. This video would not have been possible without all the footage they've uploaded, and if you'd like to check out their channels, I have links to them in the description as well. And that's it for this episode of Amusement Anthology. Feel free to share your stories and thoughts on Son of Beast down in the comments, as I'd love to hear them. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video here on Rampaging Rex Productions. Our wonderful experience and day at Kings Island has been upended by a raging thunderstorm. Will it stop anytime soon? Doesn't look like it. But it sure does look kind of interesting on camera. Not really. I wonder if I can still do the drop tower in this. Probably not.